Hello, everyone. Welcome to Homo Sapiens. Here I am. I'm sitting here with the one and only Tag Warner, chair of Gay Times. We're giggling because I called him the editor the other day. He's never been the editor. I think I need a little schooling in what an editor is. Welcome, Tag. How are you?
I'm really
Let's
well,
start there.
thanks. Do you want me to give you the quick lesson?
Yeah.
It's church and state. So in media, you've got somebody. Hi, by the way. Sorry, everyone. I'm
Hi.
Tag Warner. Lovely to be
Well,
with you.
welcome to The Rest is Entertainment with
Yes, welcome to
Richard
Entertainment.
Fiji and
So in media, you've got someone that does like the business. That was me. I was CEO until a couple of weeks ago. That's the big change for me recently. So I was CEO of Gay Times from 2019 to whatever, a month ago. And now I'm the chair, but that's always on the business side. Your editor is the one that actually like decides the content and works with the, creatives and the writers and all of that amazing stuff and sort of creates the editorial output.
I see.
So it's normally quite separate.
And understood. And you became CEO at the age of 24, right?
Yeah,
Which we talked about last time you were on the pod.
we did.
I actually was reminded of it when you did your little announcement. And what does a chair do while we're here?
Well, normally a chair is like a very old man or woman who sort of sits and presides over proceedings and gives out wise advice. But at the grand old age, I'm now 32.
Oh, yeah.
Feels slightly odd being a sort of chair at this age. But no, it's great. I mean, it's a chair is there to sort of guide and be the fountain of wisdom, I guess. I'm not sure how successful I'll be at that, but it's
You're
a
going to be
lovely,
great.
thank you. It's a lovely role to have. And what is generally, so in all sincerity, it's great to be able to be still with the company and supporting it in its next however many, 7-year era. So often we talk about 7-year cycles in business. It's sort of like a bit of a thing. But I did do exactly 7 years. So I guess my role now is to sort of set up the next 7 years and the new leadership team to take the company forward and do with it what they think is the right thing.
And then which frees you up for new exciting ventures, including writing a book.
Yeah, which is different.
How's that going? Because I saw you posted that you have you've got an agent and stuff. Like, do you have a topic? Do you have a title?
No title yet, but I think that it's those strange things, isn't it? I think I've talked to other people that have written books and like friends who have done it. And I think they said, and I very much share the sentiment, that you never really have that moment where you're like, am I like a writer or am I an author? Like, I don't know. I never said to myself one day, I'm going to write a book. But
no,
it was always sort of like an idea I had of, I'd love to explore stuff in more detail. And, the written form is quite beautiful for that, isn't it? Because it takes you so long and it is quite a long thing to consume. It's like the opposite of like watching a TikTok. It's like, it takes someone like 15
a really long
hours,
TikTok.
to read it. And like, it takes you years to write it. It's sort of like this very like, it's a long project and it's a long form piece of creativity or nonfiction or whatever. So I think I've always been very fascinated by it. And then
go on. So you're doing a memoir, right?
Yeah. So in stepping down from Gay Times, I was like, actually, what do I feel is interesting? And I had lots of people come to me and say, I think you should talk about your story. And I was like, no. I don't think that's particularly interesting. And of course, some people were nice and said, no, I think maybe it's more interesting than you think, being a sort of young CEO and changing this whole company that's been around for a long time and doing that at such a young age. But I think for me, I was more like, well, I've learned so much in that experience. Like I learned so much running Gay Times and still do. So maybe I could talk more about that as well. And then it becomes something a bit more of a mix. But I think I'm really fascinated into looking into people and sort of society and culture at large. And although I've been focused on LGBTQ+, I've always been really fascinated with society and culture at large. Of course, how do we like show up in society and culture, and what's expected of us, and all those things, which we're going to talk about today, but also
Yes.
just wider society and culture. So yeah, that's sort of that's probably as much as I can kind of say for now. But it's I think it's going to be very introspective, and I hope that one day it's published and people enjoy reading it.
I have every faith. And I just actually, while you were talking, you probably saw my face go like that, because I remembered something that I want to show you.
Oh.
Which is this book, which I read, called Write It All Down by Kathy Retzenbrink. Have you heard of that?
I've not.
Right. I'm going to send you a copy.
Thank you.
Matt Haig says it's brilliant. So it's all about how to put your life on the page.
Love
and
that.
She writes this book sort of about that thing, because her idea is that everybody has a book in them, which they do.
Yeah.
And everybody's story is interesting no matter what. And she sort of talks about how to commune with that, because when you said, oh, I don't think it's interesting enough, that's the issue for everybody. And actually it's not, it is. Anyway, I read it because I think I write drama and fiction, but it's like, I also think there is always something of you in it. You know what I mean? And how do you mine that stuff?
Yeah. Well, I've been writing. I have been, and I was writing last week, and of course I was writing a story that I've shared with a couple of people that they found very entertaining, but also quite touching and blah blah blah. And it was a nice sort of feedback in that small circle. But of course, it's about me. But you don't. It's odd because you are talking about yourself, but it doesn't really feel like me in it. I am sort of like talking about myself as like this sort of other third person. I'm talking about myself in that story as a very young version of me. And so I guess it does feel slightly otherworldly. But it was funny actually, because I actually, in writing it, it was sort of slightly more like I was telling a story than I thought it would be. It didn't feel like writing it autobiographically. It was slightly more interesting thinking about describing it and kind of going into the creative side. But anyway, it's a great experience. Have you done nonfiction?
No. And
would you ever do that? Because obviously you write amazing drama and creative, but would you ever do?
Well, I would. We got asked to do the Homo Sapiens book a lot, and we never really cracked what it was. But I probably wasn't really thinking hard enough. And I don't know that but yeah, I would absolutely. I think it's all amazing. I just love it. I love writing. I think it's incredible. I think it's also the hardest thing in the world. Yes. And you have to sort of put up with, like, podcasting, for example, is like really fun because it's very immediate and you're having a nice time and it's warm and all these things. Writing is just you alone thinking your shit.
So to give me some advice then, shall I go and disappear into like the rainforest and take my laptop with me for a month, or should I like chip away at it each week at something?
I think it depends on the person you are. Like, I get on the train when I need to get on with writing. I just go to Edinburgh and back. Like, it's mental.
Really?
Yeah.
I would do so much to not be on a train.
Really?
I love trains, but like, okay, I'm going to rephrase that. UK trains, sorry, they just suck. They really suck.
No, well, this is the problem. That's why I did the London to Edinburgh one, because it's actually one line, whereas everything else gets so delayed, and you're like, now I'm in North.
Getting on the TGV or force is quite sort of sexy, I find. I love continental European rail travel. Very chic.
Very chic. Yeah, maybe you could do.
Yeah.
Well, so there's a two-pronged thing of like, one, yes, lock yourself away if you're a very stimulus person, but also work out how to work it into your everyday. So right now, I literally, everything is powered down for 5 hours a day. Mm-hmm. I have this black box I'm holding here that the phone goes in that is locked on a timer.
No.
Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
Isn't that insane that we have this piece of technology that is that seductively tempting that you have to put it in a box and lock it?
And I'm not even joking when I say I am clucking by the time I open it. I'm like, oh, in case I was wondering if I had a problem, I absolutely have a problem.
announcement to everyone listening: you are completely addicted to your phone. I don't care if you want to argue me with this. I've actually been having this argument with people recently where they're like, I'm not addicted. We are all completely dependent on this thing that we carry around in our pocket. It's proper crazy, isn't it?
Are your parents still around?
They are.
Yeah, because the thing I find with my mum who's still around is like, I find it really unusual. We're quite alive to the idea of addiction to it, blah, blah, blah. They are totally not, but they are so addicted to it. Right?
It's
crazy. It's like, and also they have every notification on. They're like, it's like, bing, bing, bing. You're like, I would throw myself out the window.
So my lovely, lovely mum, Kerry Jane, who might even be listening to this, my mum, we always giggle. Me and my brothers, I have 3 brothers, and we always have a little giggle. She is so prompt that I joke that she replies to a message before you've even sent it.
Oh,
I'm not
so
kidding.
nice.
And Mum, obviously I love you dearly, but God, there's been quite a few times where she sent me a message going, I can see you're typing. Which I'm like, I thought I was on my phone a lot. You were there, like, my son is speaking to me. Do you know why? It's because she's so lovely and she cares about us so deeply, and she's very good at checking in on us and making sure we're okay and being supportive. So it comes from a really wonderful place. So yeah, I'm only teasing, Mum, but you're right. It's funny actually, because I'm very aware that we're all really addicted to technology, but I was surprised at how many people are in my life that are like, no, not at all. I'm like, yeah, you so are.
Yeah, it's horrific. Anyway, and I feel myself being freed by the 5 hours a day. Like, it is like, you know, it's insane. But yeah, so we look forward to being the first to hear more of what happens with your book, Tag, and we're delighted to have you here doing some co-hosting.
Very happy to be here.
We thought we were going to talk about today. So lots of you have messaged in about this over the past few months. So we thought we would do the topic today of, well, ask the question, are open relationships the future of queer love? And we've been asking you all about open relationships. Maybe, should we start with, Tag, how would you define an open relationship? What's your understanding of it?
Well, I guess that's the first beautiful complexity of it, isn't it? Is that it can be defined in so many ways.
Yeah.
Not to be too meta, and sorry to answer your question with sort of like a non-answer, but one thing I've always found so fascinating about open relationships as well is because we do not have a common understanding of what they are. It's so easy for it to lead to challenge, because if we all look at a chair made out of wood and we can all say, well, that's a chair, then we at least understand what we're talking about. But when we point at an open relationship, there's so many variables and so many different aspects to what that means. And I've seen that trip people up a lot. So I think that's the first thing, isn't it? Is that actually it can mean so many different things. Is an open relationship just about sex, or is it also about romance? Am I allowed to have feelings for other people, or am I sort of not? Is it with multiple people or with, just a few? Am I allowed to have the same open experience with the same person multiple times? Am I allowed to do it whenever I like, or am I not? Like, there's just so many things about it. So it's sort of beautifully complex, but also I'm sure we'll get into this, but I've seen so many friends also and people I work with also feel sort of tripped up by it because they've had that misunderstanding from day one.
Yes. And so many people have put in their specifics, like someone's got this weird 24-hour rule that they hadn't finished the sentence, but there's so many, ultimately it's kind of like you're in a relationship, one person or another is going to involve themselves in it, and free love abound. Cut to. But I mean, a lot of people are, I feel like in a certain area of society as well, like they feel like they've been a bit buzzy lately, partly because of Lily Allen's album. and
Mhm.
you know, her opening up her relationship and there being misunderstandings about what that meant for her that she documented, and all of that stuff. And that's a heterosexual relationship. And I do, as you know, you're saying you love culture a second ago. It's like, well, often LGBTQ plus people are at the forefront of that, and I feel like also they are at the forefront of open relationships that has spilled over into heterosexuality. Or maybe I'm wrong about that link, but I would say so. And
I
I
do
think
remember
that,
growing up actually on that point and
yeah,
straight friends saying, you know, oh, well, when you get older, you know, you'll be able to be like open, or you'll get to be in a relationship, or you'll get these other
funny.
experiences. I don't get that in the society that I live in. Your parallel
Mm,
universe allows you that, and sort of I'm jealous or resentful or, you know, a bit envious that you get that and I don't. And I always remember hearing that and being
yes.
like, God, what do they mean? I mean, I was being quite literal because I was like, well, we live in the same world, and of course, it took me many years to then understand the sort of like pressure that straight people often talk about, where they feel like actually that's very taboo, or that's very difficult to even raise that as a subject.
Absolutely. I've had that so many times of like, you guys, you know, it's essentially you lot are allowed to make it up as you go along in whatever way
Yes,
you choose,
yes,
and therefore you'll be fine. But actually, that's an outsider's view. And I think what's been really interesting listening to people who've written in saying the ones that they feel it's going well has been entirely about communication and actually very specific about what's happening. Like, to your point, and you know, there is kind of more of a norm in the queer community about it, but why don't we dive in on a stat and have a look and see what all of you listeners have been saying? So we started out by asking you all, would you consider being in an open relationship? 55% of you said yes. So that's the majority. 45% of you said no. And then we said, and why? So why not, or why yes? Tag, do you want to read some of what people said about why they would or wouldn't?
to answer the question, would you consider being in an open relationship? They've said no, because they're too much of an insecure person. I would love to
Mhm.
talk about that, because actually, I've had that conversation with many friends, and I've been
Mm.
privy to lots of judgment about that, but also some compassion as well. I think that's quite an interesting point.
Mm.
Someone else has said, I've always had a never say never approach, but only after proper communication. I think that you just
Mhm.
said, I think a big theme of many of these is it feels like communication is like the biggest call out of like a necessity. Um,
Yes.
and someone else has
Uh,
said, I tried it and I hated it.
yeah, someone else says always ends
At
in
least you know what you
tears.
want. That's great.
Quite right. You know, it's not for everyone. Already in one and it works, someone else says.
I actually thought you just said already in one at work.
He's right
So
here.
it
Like,
works.
that
Yes.
they are right
I
here. All
love
of them.
that. I'm in an open relationship with my boss. How,
Yeah.
how salacious and
I wouldn't
sordid.
put it past these listeners, I tell you. I like the idea of being able to sexually explore other people with my partner, group threesomes, for example. So, yeah, interesting. Let's talk about the insecurity thing, because it is interesting. I know that the reason I'm not in one is not because of an insecurity per se, but I think it doesn't bring out the best in me, because I would, you know, I don't think it would bring out the best in me. Tell me what
Mm.
your conversations have been.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I've been privy to like in friendship dynamics and groups where someone said, um, I don't think I've got the kind of like personality for that, or I feel like maybe that would make me feel really insecure about myself. And the pressure then has often been to say to that person, well, you need to get over that. You need to work on yourself. You need to improve your self-esteem so that you're not jealous or you're not overly sensitive. And I've often
Mm,
tried to take a slightly different approach, be like, actually, I think if someone's communicating that they don't feel like that within themselves, that's great that they've got that ability to vocalize that and they're being honest.
mm.
Not everyone wants to say, I feel too insecure. So the fact that they're saying that, I think, should be given some room to
Totally.
that, and they should
Quite
be
right.
given the space. And also, being in an open relationship is not the de facto end goal for everybody. So actually to then say, well, you've got to work on yourself so that you can get there is sort of like preempting the end of the story, which might not be their story. So I've always had tremendous respect for people that have been in them, but also for people that have said, it's not for me. And I don't think it ever is going to be for me. And I've been like, that's great that you know what you want. And I do sometimes feel like, I don't know if you've been there, but I've sometimes been at, whether it's dinners or drinks or like, you know, you're just spending time with friends. You know, it's one of those topics, isn't it? People have got quite strong opinions on a lot of the time. And I've definitely been on the receiving end of that. You know, whichever way you think about it, I think we put a lot of effort sometimes into trying to convince other people that they're wrong or that they're right. And I think actually it's such a personal thing.
I am, I mean, happy to have my mind changed throughout this conversation. Isn't that the purpose? But I do think they have become a lot more prevalent lately. I think that I feel, it doesn't mean it's true. We're going to get into therapy speak quite quick. But I feel sometimes judged that I'm not open by people. When I tell people that I'm in a monogamous relationship, I get a bit of a reaction these days, which I didn't used to. And someone talked about this later in the messages, just saying that it's quite a London-centric thing, and I was interested in that. You know, so I think that it feels like, perhaps I feel like there's more of it than there is, because I'm talking about London and New York and cities is where I've had kickback.
Yes, it's probably quite hard, isn't it, to be in an open relationship when you live in like a rural cottage on the side of a hill.
Yes. I don't know. You stick a sign outside.
Unless the milkman is particularly...
He's gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Okay, let's have a look at the next one. So just 55% of you would consider being in one. But then when we ask those who are, if you're in a relationship, are you monogamous or open? Tag, would you like to reveal our survey says?
If you're in a relationship, are you monogamous or open? I was quite surprised by this, you know. 75% said monogamous. 25% said open. Why did I think it was going to be the other way around?
Same, because I feel like that's what, is it a bit like people say, how do you know someone's vegan? Don't worry, they'll tell you. Is it like, how do you know someone's in an open relationship? Don't worry, they'll tell you. Those are people who talk about it.
Though, it is fascinating, isn't it? Because sometimes there's such a significant dialogue around topics because they can be seen to be a little bit like, you know, different or you know, going against social norms, which is totally great. And therefore it feels like everyone else is in them. So that's interesting, because I really thought, because of how much we talk about it as a community, that it would be like over 50%, well over 50%.
Me too.
I really thought that.
Well, this is why I love these surveys, because obviously this is just a section, you know what I mean? But like, I love trying out things that you think are real with the listeners, you know, and it's like, it's always a surprise. And so then we asked, have open relationships become the norm? Yes, said 44% of you. So no, said 56% of you. So sort of slightly more in where we were coming from there. Lots more people think that they've become the norm than seems to be true. But there is a change. And have you heard this theory that, like, because of PrEP and DoxyPEP, that we have finished a period, for gay men I'm talking about, a period of fear of sex that was brought around from HIV and AIDS. And therefore we did become more prudish. That's not the right word, but it's the only one that's in my head, for a period of around 30 years or longer. And now we're going back to almost like San Francisco days, which was free love. And that's more where we sit. It's quite interesting, isn't it?
It is. It is. I was actually just looking, by the way, on that before I jump in, that someone has literally just said what we said, which was, it's when you live in London and you go out on the scene, it makes it feel like it's more prevalent than it is. So maybe that's also why. Maybe just because we're two scene queens and we spend loads of time in the clubs, we just feel like it's so much more
judging.
Prevalent. Yeah, exactly.
Judging people.
Yeah, exactly. I'll see you in the dark room tonight.
Excuse me, that looks very open. What's going on down there? There's 4 of you there. That is an open relationship right there.
Exactly. Survey says open. So
like that.
yeah,
Backing
it's
away.
really fascinating, isn't it? I would say I can definitely self-reflect on this. I grew up in Jersey, which is like the tiny little island near France. I moved to the UK when I was 18. And so all of that sort of like first, 5-10 years of sexual experience, what was the one thing that would stop me from, having sexual experience with somebody, or, sleeping or being in an open relationship? I'm being really honest. The fear for me was definitely the health fear, or, anything associated. So I'm old enough that PrEP still wasn't widely available at all. So all of my first sexual experiences were not, on PrEP and all of that kind of era. That I was too early for that. And so, of course, you were using protection, and there'd be a lot of worry about that, even if you did use it, because of stories and all those sorts of things. And then, like you say, when PrEP came around, this is way before DoxyPEP. So then it was, well, actually, okay, fine. You might be protected in one thing, but actually there's loads of other stuff, and there's syphilis rising. So there was always a huge fear in me, and I would worry quite a lot around that sort of thing. And I think that was a mixture of, having people that I met, who were old in the community telling me about what it was like, growing up during the HIV/AIDS crisis, learning about that myself, other anxieties, etc. But you're right. I think it's an interesting point that was almost, whether we acknowledged it or not, it was probably like a limiting factor in our sort of like ability to be sexually free or liberated. And so if you then say, well, actually, there's, various things, medication, treatment, preventative measures, that mean that's much less of an actual worry or risk, whether that's just a worry or a genuine risk or not. Does that make people sort of step into their like sexual liberation more? Probably. I think that I've noticed a significant increase in sort of like discourse, at least, of sexual liberation, and kind of much more integration into kind of wider culture of those conversations in the last few years, even.
Same. And, I mean, first thing to say is like, write in if that's timing with you, listeners. Hello at homosapienspodcast.com, at homosapiens on Instagram. But also, I wonder if as well, when you were talking there, because you said the last few years, what do we all think about this as an idea? We got gay marriage, we got all this stuff, alleged equal rights, for some. And in that often is conformity, like you conform, but actually moving beyond that is probably developing it more in our own style. And I think that happens across time, doesn't it? In many examples, none of which I can remember, but maybe it's about the evolution of what we see as commitment as well. It's just evolving. It could be that. So we said, have open relationships become the norm? 44% of you said yes. The majority of you said no. Let's see, have a read of some of those comments, if there's any good ones you like.
So many people are in open relationships, but they are not all the same. Different dynamics and different rules. So, I mean, that was sort of like our opening gag, wasn't it? So
previously
hear you on that. Seems like every second person on apps is in one.
Yes. Well, I always find that's what people say. They're like, oh, I saw his husband on the apps as well. So,
so that's fascinating, isn't it? Because I always hear as well friends that will complain that they won't be able to find like boyfriends or girlfriends, or basically people to be in the relationship aspect with on an app. They can find lots of hookups and like that sort of relationship, but they can't find sort of longer term or deeper, whatever you might call it, relationships, which chimes with that comment.
Yeah, and those people are always going to be, if they're looking for more, the apps is where you find it, right?
Sure.
50-50, says someone else, more so in the queer community than the heterosexual community. They become more accepted and discussed as they should be. If you're in a relationship, how's it been?
We asked, is it mostly positive, mostly negative, or somewhere in the middle, a bit of both. So if you're in an open relationship, 53% said it was mostly positive, only 15% said negative, and then 30% was somewhere in the middle, which again is interesting. Looking at the comments, which we'll go into, it does seem like people do talk, which is great. That actually it's been mostly a positive thing. There's challenges, but it's sort of been like
Yeah.
this helpful thing.
Well, also, I feel like if that was just asking what people about, like, what are relationships like, it would be like mostly positive, some negative, a bit
Yes,
of both.
yeah,
You know, like
of course.
I think as well, like that's an interesting thing because I think there is something, I think sometimes they are put up here, like open relationships are put kind of higher than normal relationships because they're about finding the zenith of freedom and love. But actually, I think every relationship, whether it's with your dog or anything, is complicated, like, and they require work. There is no, there is not an open
What
relationship
relationship with your dog?
As in any kind of relationship you have in your life.
Yeah.
I'm not talking sexual about the dog.
No, of course, but I was more
I think we need to cut
have you
this
got a
bit.
complicated relationship with your dog?
I don't know why I chose dog. I think I was just trying to, I'll rephrase it. I think what's interesting is all relationships are complicated, is what I mean. And that could be a friend relationship.
Now, 100%. And also, I think one of the comments that I can't remember where it was, which I always think is a great way to look at anything in life, is that they said it's not a silver bullet. And I think that is a great way of looking at it. So yeah, you're right. Of course, it's going to change for people, but it's not this sort of like one size fits all magic solution. And it doesn't mean that it's going to fix everything or mend everything if there are challenges. I'm sure it sort of improves or sort of doesn't improve various relationships.
And something I love is that it is everybody who is in one is saying, for example, it's been a journey. Open starts with open communication. I opened my relationship 20 years ago. This is someone else now. I opened my relationship after 20 years together. So we had a good foundation of trust first. And I think if people are talking about it's something that makes you communicate better, that's great, because there are many, many relationships trundling along where people have stopped talking, right? And that is so common across the board. And that can also be friendships or your relationship with your dog if you stop talking.
No, absolutely. I think as a mechanism to encourage or even maybe like push for greater communication conversation, it sounds like lots of you agree. Well, one thing that my friend told me once, which I thought was really interesting, is that they went into an open relationship and they had so many requirements that it became such a huge logistical task.
Yeah.
And there was almost like a pro forma checklist that you had to submit to your partner and, get validated and approved by the authorities. And then you sort of got like a permission slip to go in advance. And then you sort of had to put like a contractual request in and then all of these things. And they said that it made it so cumbersome that, of course, any excitement out of any situation was actually lost. And they said, do you think my partner did that on purpose?
Oh,
so that
wow.
He could say, well, we are technically in an open relationship, which is what you wanted, but we're just playing by the rules. But he said, the rules became so ridiculous that it was like a preventative measure in itself. And then the outcome was that they stopped bothering because it was so frustrating. And then they were like, oh my God, maybe this was all designed just to get me back into monogamy. And I was like, well, actually, I do wonder if, because, it's not just about deciding if you are or not, it's how it happens, is the kind of rules and frameworks around it, right, become actually really important.
Yeah. And I wish we'd asked that question, everyone, actually. So if you could write in with your top 3 rules for an open relationship, because I'd love to know more of them. Someone said that there's a 24-hour rule.
What is that?
Which I think it's that you can't spend more. You can spend like 24 hours with them, but you can't keep going back to them. The person who wrote that in, please, could you say what you meant by that? Or should we look at an email tag? Why don't we look at an email?
Let's look at an email. My partner and I will have been together 18 years this year, And I think it was probably about 8 or 9 years ago that we opened up our relationship. It came about because we were very drunk one night, and my partner admitted that he had been to a sauna and had a really great time. And I found this really quite turned me on, and I wasn't angry at all. We left it at that. And then a few months later, we sort of addressed our relationship, which was very good, but the sex was perhaps a bit samey, and decided opening it up would be a good thing. My partner's always been and is a bottom, and I'm versatile. And I was obviously the top in our relationship, but I miss being a bottom. So it really worked for me as well because it gave me the ability to go out and explore being a bottom again. The thing is just to take a sensible and mature approach to it. And I think some open relationships get burdened down by too many rules and regulations.
Well,
There you go, unless by design, of course. Whilst you've got to have some ground rules, you can't get too carried away, as in someone will trip up. I think that's very mature, to be honest, to say that. We're just
Yeah.
sensible. We certainly don't rub at each other's faces, and we're really considerate to each other, and we're safe, and we don't do silly things. Neither of us take drugs or anything like that, so we're not going off having wild benders. I've made some fantastic friends who I probably otherwise wouldn't have met, and some of these have just turned into friendships. Sometimes there's more to it. It's a bit more like friends with benefits, which is really nice, but I love my partner very much, and we're very happy. I'm no good at monogamy. I know that, and I don't think he is either. So really, the open relationship works well for us. I think the biggest challenge I've experienced is developing feelings for someone else. And that is something that obviously is very difficult and can happen in open relationships. It has happened to me, but it sorted itself out because the other guy was also in a relationship and neither of us were prepared to do anything more about it. But there was definitely a very strong connection. And I guess that did slightly scare me.
Mm.
So my advice would be to try and keep those emotions in check as far as you possibly can. But we're just human after all. What a lovely email.
That's beautiful.
Dear listener, that's incredibly beautifully considered and mature and very balanced. And I love that. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and do you know what as well? I think it's it shows that it's hard, but also that I think if you're going to embark on one, you have to be open to the fact that anything could happen. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And are you prepared for that? Because don't have in your mind's eye what will happen. Because the way he spoke about having strong feelings for someone that he didn't want, and neither of them, it sounded like that was a bit of a tangle, but then still managed to deal with that. Super cool.
Yeah.
And it's very even as well.
Yeah. That is yeah, very admirable. And it also suggests, I know you didn't sort of specifically say it, but suggests that it has strengthened their relationship through
Yes.
their
Yes.
ability to experience, find other friends. I know something that I know many of us struggle with, when we have or, have been in relationships, past or present, is this feeling that we maybe don't have contact with sort of like the outside world and we sort of stop that social interaction development journey. And so I've never thought about it in that way, that being in an open relationship is actually like a vehicle to meeting people.
Yes. Well, that's one thing I love about queerness, full stop, is like you always end up socializing in multi-generational ways, more so, you know what I mean? And we go out more into our later years. And so therefore you encounter more, like that whole side of you doesn't end. And I think therefore you continue to make new relationships. And, like for years I hosted this podcast with Alan Cumming, who is like the king of that, like Alan age doesn't exist to Alan, as in he doesn't see it, it keeps you alive in that sense. It's magical. I've got an email from someone else as well. I can't remember if they want it to be anonymous. I'm just going to read it as anonymous. Hi, Chris. Just a quick comment or two on open relationships. I think there's a lot of judgment about them because they're not common. There seems to be a lot of people out there who are quite judgmental of them because they find them a bit threatening. I don't think it's only about hooking up. I think the extracurricular activities with others can be like little love stories in their own right. And I think the stereotype makes people assume that people in open relationships are sleeping with lots of partners every week, which in my case isn't correct. But I do have the official permit to stray if the odd opportunity comes up, which is lovely. And I really love my partner, and I'm not looking to disrupt that at all. Just wanted to jot that down in case it's helpful. Right, now to shower and to work. Take care. Lovely. Don't our listeners write beautifully?
I was going to say, I feel like you've got these beautiful, mature listeners that are very sort of pragmatic about all of this.
Yes. Well, that seems to be a bit of a hallmark, doesn't it? It's that it's sort of pragmatism is a hallmark of these people who are making them work. You know, like there's some, in a really good way, there's a slight lack of romance in it. You know what I mean?
Is that important?
And I don't mean that in a rude way.
No. But is that important? Because actually, the fact that there's this sort of lack of romance suggests that there's maybe a different emotional connection to it. And the fact that it is quite pragmatic, does that make it feel, you know, maybe in a positive way, less threatening? Because
clear-eyed, I suppose, is better.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
Because you're playing with emotion. So when we did this episode with Dr. Raj, we were talking about heated rivalry, and I can't remember how or why we ended up in this particular rabbit hole, but he was saying that sex is great because it means, or maybe I was saying, I can't remember. Anyway, sex is great because sleeping around is great because it's just about the sex and therefore the person is interchangeable. But feelings is when things get complicated.
Yeah.
And therefore harder and more grown up. And there's almost hallmarks of that in what these people are saying.
Well, that is a different aspect, right, to open relationships. I think my guess is that of the emails we've read and the messages, I think we're kind of hearing experiences of people who are in a relationship with one other person and are talking about an open relationship being sexual experiences outside of a primary emotional relationship. I'm just guessing, but that's the vibe I'm getting from the emails and messages. Of course, there are open relationships. I have some friends in them where there is a primary emotional relationship and then other emotional relationships. So, for example, you know, Dave might be in a relationship with Jen. And
names redacted.
Yes, these are all made up names. If you didn't figure that out already. By the way, I said them. Dave might be in a relationship with Jen, but then Dave would then say to Jen, I went on a date with Claire today and we're going to go on another date and I really like her and we have a great relationship. And Jen and, you know, Dave actually have this understanding and an openness that it's not just about sex. They will actively, you know, develop, and they're okay, and they share emotional relationships as well, and they share that with each other. And at the same time, Jen can go off and meet Clarissa. Why Clarissa? I don't know, but Clarissa and Jen might have
That's classic Jen, though, isn't it?
Yeah, classic Jen.
Jen's so like that.
To have an emotional relationship or just a sexual relationship. Now, I've not ever been in any of those types of relationships, so I can't speak from personal experience. But I've got some really close friends that are. And it's so interesting because it sort of like ups the ante in terms of complexity, but also the need to communicate and also understanding what is appropriate or not appropriate. Is everything appropriate? And also, are people able to sort of like safeguard their own feelings, or is this about being sort of completely open and completely transient in sort of your emotional capacity that everything and anything is okay? But then of course I say to them, you know, do you get jealous, for example? Like, because if someone's having an emotional relationship, do you sort of feel like that's for you only or not? And they were like, yeah, it's really, really complicated. So I've always been quite intrigued by, is there almost like a human limit to the complexity? I'm not saying there is or isn't, but you know, for example, have we got our heads around emotional relationships being relatively contained, but sex is something different? I think lots of people talk to me that way. They say, well, sex is a different thing. Okay, fine. So, you know, or can we include emotional relationships in that as well? Or is that a step too far?
I just don't think I've ever had sex without an emotional feeling about it.
Oh, Chris.
I know.
You're
And I know
so
that's what people
naughty.
say to me. They're like, oh,
That's
cute.
so
But it's,
nice. I'm
but
so
people,
sad we're not with each other. I just want to give you a little hug. And not
oh,
in a patronizing way. No, I think there's something. Okay, let's take a detour then, and I'm gonna use my co-host token because I know this is not my podcast.
please.
But I'm technically co-hosting everyone.
It's your podcast today, Tech.
Because if you haven't had a sexual experience without feeling like the emotion attached to it, then I guess how does that make you feel about yourself and like how you kind of show up to the world and to people and relationships, that kind of thing? There's something quite beautifully romantic about that. And maybe that's me sort of like kind of fetishizing that in the way, I don't know. But like, I think there's something so beautiful about that. Is that really beautiful, or is that sort of like annoying? Do you feel like you wish you could?
I think it's so two things. One is there's that Feist song, I Feel It All. And I always
Yeah.
think about that song because it's just like, I feel everything hard, right? And that can have great things, but it can also feel everything hard is probably not the thing to say. But like, it's like, it's
Yeah.
like, but then of course that also is just quite a lot to deal with because
Yeah.
I just quite like to be a little more numb occasionally. Although my husband would also say I can be quite numb. So that's another episode. But I think it's kind of like, I don't know. I think it's what I would say. It's you don't know if you haven't experienced it. And I'm sort of stumbling because I'm like quitting myself. I'm like, maybe is this true, Chris? Is this true? And it's like, yeah, no, I think it is.
The other one that I found fascinating is, and this is another slight detour, but it's the same topic, is at Gay Times, I would travel a lot for work, like a lot. And not as much in the sort of the last couple of years as I sort of shifted into this new role and whatever, but in the real peak for me in my kind of shifts and changes, it was so much going out into the world and meeting people and doing all of that kind of work. And so I'd be on the road a lot. And when you're on the road a lot, you realize that you're on the road with other people a lot, which I kind of, conceptually was sort of new to me. So I would often be in hotels or at conferences or summits. And then you, of course, have that moment where you're like, oh, actually, you're also away as well. So I might know, these group of people on this, let's say, a conference, right? So I'm at a conference in Miami and there's 100, 500 other people there, and they all have a life somewhere else as well, as do I. So of course you get to know these people over the week. Most of them have got husbands or wives. Lots of people that I was working with might be straight as well, not just people in our community. And it was so crazy to me how many of them were just fucking each other all the time in these hotels.
Wow.
And I was like, I thought this was going to be like a little, a few people would be involved on the side and it'd be a bit hush hush. But we were like talking about it in front of each other. And it was really, really open. And again, I don't know if it's that thing where, because that's my experience, now I feel like everyone does that. But I really mean it. I would go to so many of these things in different countries around the world. And we would have dinner and people would sort of like talk about like, oh yeah, well, I sort of had a bit of fun last night with, that person over there who's also at the conference, but I have got a wife and 2 kids at home, or I've got a husband. And so my question or like my intrigue in that, and I often would say, without prying, do they know or not? And that's not me judging. I'm just really fascinated in how this all works. And they'd go, oh, no. It's just a here thing. So I go, okay, so fine. So, this is going on, but the other person doesn't know. And I don't know why this metaphor always came into my head, is the whole, if what is it? If a tree falls down in a forest,
yes,
tree falls down in the forest and no one's there to hear it. What is that? What am I trying to say? Did it make a sound?
Yeah. If a tree falls down the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a noise?
Yeah. My brain does not work when it comes to idioms. I say things like, cool as a crisp. And I'm like, wait, that's not it. So anyway, does it matter if the person doesn't ever know? And I thought, God, what a moral, ethical dilemma. Because of course my first instinct was to jump and say, of course it matters. Like, you're
Mm,
betraying the trust and all those things. But then I was going, well, I kind of guess what you're saying is they're never going to find out, and you're not ever going to tell them. So maybe sort of is it the what you don't know can't hurt you?
mm,
So I know it's not technically open, but I always have thought that if you are in a situation where maybe you're not definitely open or you haven't had the conversation and something happens when you're away, or I don't know,
mhm.
and the other person never finds out, is that okay? Is there a problem with that?
Well, it's it's so interesting because obviously I can't answer yes or no, but I will. What made me think of something when you were saying that is what you were talking about at the beginning. Two things. One is what you're talking about at the beginning, where people are saying, "Oh, you're gay, so you'll end up being in open relationships." That's what straight people think. And the second one is Ryan O'Connell, who always says straight people are in hell because they don't have any model for this stuff. So they can't bring it up. They
Right.
feel they can't.
So they go to
Uh,
conferences and they
and do it in secret because it won't be
is
tolerated.
is that why the conference industry is thriving?
Do you know what? I did literally, I've just realized all conferences feel so pointless. Now we know why. They're not there for the conference.
Honestly, I'm going to say this is completely unscientific, scientific evidence. 80% of the conference is just there for people to leave home to have illicit sex.
Yes, that means they'll
Legit.
never go out of business. So it's a good recession-proof business.
It's a
Um,
really, really good business because people are always going to want to do it. Actually, hear this then. Because actually it requires you to be so far away so this can all happen behind your partner's back. So actually, they have an invested interest, the conference industry, in open relationships not becoming popularized in the straight community,
oh
because
my
then
God.
everyone's just going to be doing it at home. And where's the need for a
We,
conference?
we found a conspiracy tag. We started with a simple
I
question.
love a good conspiracy.
But but you know as well, this is another thing that came to me when you were saying that is I have always found anonymous spaces like airports and stuff super like pick-uppy. Like I feel like everyone feels a bit
Why
like
is
horny
an
in an
airport
airport.
so horny?
Yes.
Okay, so my first job was check-in for British Airways.
Oh wow.
Um,
I remember you telling me that, yes.
I think we talked about this the last time on
Yes,
the
we did.
podcast. Okay, so honestly, I would find people canoodling in bathrooms, cruising. Like this was really, really common. It was like weirdly common to find two guys together in a cubicle, or hear people like
Wow.
having sex. Um,
Wow.
but lots of sexual tension at airports. Why? Honestly, I want us to work this out right now. What is it? It must be the fact that there's something about the thrill of the fact that in an hour you're thousands of miles away,
Yeah.
right? And therefore it sort of doesn't matter. Or
Totally. I think you're anonymous.
yeah.
You're passing through. There's no commitment. There's a reason to instigate it now because you're about to go. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And
so it's an opportunity cost thing as well. I've got to do it
yeah.
now because I'm going to lose this.
Also, more to the point, you're going to lose me, so I won't be around for repercussions in your life. I think,
Yeah.
and I think, and I do think that is again, it's that thing of like because it isn't tolerated as much in straight environments. Although you're talking about these being lots of men hooking up with each other, but I don't know. I just think, yeah, I've always just found them like I once got hit on a plane. This guy passed me a note on a plane
Uh,
over 3 people.
oh my God. I had that happen to me as well.
Really?
I had a note.
And
Did you,
probably same person.
yeah, probably. Did you
Uh,
return a note?
well, because I'm, such a sad sack. I wrote him a text message saying, "Sorry, I've got a boyfriend." I don't think he replied. Yeah. What about you?
I did reply to the note.
Yeah.
It didn't go any further. But my explanation for that was that he was more interested in the sort of excitement and like the awful word, but like the titillation, the kind of
Right,
whole experience.
right.
So that when I did reciprocate, it was like, oh, like that
Interesting.
buzz is over now. And I was like, oh, okay, that's
Yes,
fine then.
that's interesting.
Maybe. So I actually, honestly, I reflected and thought I should have been like really cold. I think that's probably what he was into. It was like me sort of like being
Right.
like, ugh, and throwing the note on the seat next to me and just being like, how awful. And then I think he would have really gone for it.
You got no, but you don't want. You just got to.
Well, no, exactly. I was going to play the game. But
Exactly.
but yeah, it would be interesting. I know we're not going to, of course, but you know, if I was a co-host again, please do writing, everyone, because I would love to know.
Like you're coming back, whether you like it or not.
Have you? Thank you. Have you? I really want to know. Have you either had an experience, you know,
Yeah.
while away, and either divulged or not divulged it, and how do you feel about it? Did it count? Basically, did it ever happen?
Yes.
Did it happen or not? And there's no judgment in that question. And I'm not suggesting either one's right or wrong, but I'm always really fascinated. Did it happen? Did the tree fall in the wood?
Yes. Hello at homosapienspodcast.com at Homo sapiens on Instagram. Did that tree fall in the wood? Let's summarize, as they say. I'm going to read one final message. A game changer for me of being in an open relationship is that it can eliminate sex outside the relationship as the ultimate betrayal, what you were just talking about, Tag, often causing a breakup. I have also found trust has increased, openness and communication about what we like sexually has also increased, and the pressure to be everything for each other has decreased. Having said that, jealousy still occurs, but we have much more frank conversations about how we are feeling in these moments. Being in an open relationship isn't a silver bullet for these feelings. Emotions are still there and we can still get hurt. But the increased communication and honesty around our desires mitigates a lot of angst. On another note, living somewhere like London and being on the scene can make one feel prudish if you're not in an open relationship and sleeping with loads of guys every weekend, especially in the age of Instagram and steroids.
That's a great way to sum it up, though. I mean, yeah.
Listeners, thank you for all of that. Much to chew on. I'm having dinner with a load of gays tonight, so I'm going to throw all this out to the table, see what comes back,
and have a serious conversation with your dog, of course.
Ridley needs to be across this, okay? Before we go, I just need to remind everyone. So this season we're supporting Not a Phase, so you need to write in to hello@homosapienspodcast.com at Homo Sapiens on Instagram to nominate either yourself or someone you know for some gender-affirming underwear from Danny St. James's Underwear Company. Write in all your reactions. Does the tree fall in the woods, for example? And anything else. Write in your topics you'd like us to talk about. That just leaves me to say, Tag, thank you. You've been such a wonderful co-host.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. I always love chatting and hooting and hollering with you. So please do. It's always a joy.
You're coming back and we'll resume. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Lots of love. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.